What if you are in a relationship with a narcissist, have a desire to leave, but simultaneously find it seemingly near fucking impossible to get out? This video is essentially going to be somewhat, at least, of a part two to my most recent video on narcissistic relationships. And in that video, I was talking about how there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of information out there on narcissistic relationships. In my opinion, a lot of it, if not a far majority of it, is very time wasting. And it will basically have you missing out on years of your life that, of course, you can't get back. And I'm going to explore a lot more of the different dynamics in narcissistic relationships in this video. I was kind of reflecting on a lot of the things that I said in the first video, and also like looking at the feedback that I was getting in the comments section. And I want to approach this video with a lot more information that I think will be very helpful for people, while simultaneously utilizing, I think, a much more dynamic, I don't even know if that's a word, but anyway, an approach that has a bit different of a dynamic because, one, narcissistic relationships, there are many out there. There are many out there. There are many people that are in narcissistic relationships that don't even know that they're in narcissistic relationships. There are many people that want to leave their narcissistic relationships but don't know how. And let me make this very clear. I'm going to say this with a heart full of empathy and compassion. And this is just the reality of it. Maybe it's not entirely the reality of it for everybody, but for a lot of people it is. It can be really, really, really fucking challenging. Potentially even near seemingly impossible to get out of a narcissistic relationship. And the reason being, well, the reasons being are what I'm about to explore in this video. First, I just want to open by saying something that I think is very important to say, because to understand the depth of a narcissist, what needs to be understood is what the narcissist did in childhood that created the dynamic that so many people are actually attracted to. And I won't say that this is the same across the board for all types of narcissists, because there are different types of narcissists. There's, grandiose, there's malignant, there are these different types. Some people, they're NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, and everything just fucking checks off all across the board. I will first and foremost say that narcissism in and of itself is defined by the choosing of the self. It is all about the self. Narcissists that are considered unhealthy, most people look at narcissism and they're like, avoid that at all costs because they're exceedingly unhealthy individuals. In the case of what I'm talking about here is that in regards to the choosing of the self, narcissists are like, it's all about me, it's all about me, it's all about me. But that is simultaneously while completely disregarding other people. That's the way that it works. So the narcissist's childhood was so fucking painful that as a defense mechanism, they basically entered a fantasy world. A fantasy world where they were in a different way than whoever raised them had them believe that they were. Narcissists at the core have a far majority of nothing but fucking shame, which is why it's so fucking challenging for them to look at themselves. At the core, not only are they fucking empty, but anything that is there, other than literally crumbs of a fucking ego state, literally, like it's pretty much ruins there. Like at the core, narcissists are pretty much fucking hollow. They severely lacked healthy ego state development. And then other than that, what was poured into them by the people that raised them was just fucking reservoirs, oceans, universes of shame. So imagine like having nothing at your core. It's already scary to look at yourself while simultaneously having nothing in there. Imagine having a static sense of self and being able to reference that, being able to look at yourself and be like, yes, I know who I am. Narcissists don't. And then whenever they do look at themselves, they see shame. And it's really painful for them to deal with. But so that's the fantasy. I want to say the foundation of the kind of psychosis, because if you've created a fantasy that you are something or someone that you're not, and it's not true, it's not real, not only is it a fantasy, but it's also psychotic. So this is like the foundation of the psychosis. The fantasy in and of itself is essentially psychotic. And the reference to that, the behavior in regards to that, is psychotic. So like, I don't know if you've ever watched any other videos on narcissism, but it's fascinating because many people talk about the fantasy of the narcissist. What do narcissists want? Well, considering that they basically like have nothing at the core other than shame, they want the admiration. They want the adoration. They want to be seen as something other than the hollowness and the fucking shame that is inside of themselves. And because they can't do that for themselves, because anybody that severely lacked healthy ego state development, they have nothing to look at. They have nothing to reference. So what do? They rely on their narcissistic extensions to do that for them. Because the narcissistic extension, which is another person outside of them, essentially becomes a defense mechanism against the severity of lacking within themselves. Oh, I'm terrified to look at myself. So instead, you're going to become a narcissistic extension of me, and essentially you're going to contain me. You're going to give me form. Without you, I don't know who I am. Narcissists, they utilize other people as narcissistic extensions to create form for themselves. Essentially boundaries, because they lack boundaries. Narcissists severely lack boundaries in many different ways, but first and foremost, starting off with ego state development, personality. That's the reality of that. So understand that first and foremost, yeah, this video is probably going to be pretty long, upwards of like 25 to 30 minutes. So grab your fucking popcorn, come chill by the fire. I'm trying to make this as fun as possible because, I reflected on the other video that I made, and I was like, while I really did appreciate what I had to say in that, and I understand that I approached it from a kind of like, just leave standpoint, it's really fucking challenging to just leave narcissistic relationships, considering the deeper dynamics of what actually takes place in them. So I'm going to do the best that I can to really explore all of those dynamics to help people understand like what's actually happening within the relationship that makes it so challenging to just leave. It's fucking sad. People that are unaware of what's actually happening have a harder time leaving because they don't realize that they're just like the narcissist does not give a fuck about you or anybody. They're incapable of it. It's not because of malicious intent. Developmentally, emotionally, they're incapable of it. An infant is incapable of giving a fuck about anybody and its surroundings and its environment. Narcissists are essentially the same. They were emotionally stagnated at a very early age. That's the reality of it. So let me make this also very clear, though. Any individual that is emotionally healthy is, one, not going to be attracted to a narcissist because they see the dynamic for what it is, and two, is not going to have a relationship with a narcissist. So you won't see somebody who's emotionally healthy getting into a relationship with a narcissist. It just doesn't work. It doesn't happen. It's like seeing shit for what it is. Like literal shit. You know what it looks like, you know what it smells like, ew, I'll pass. That's basically how healthy people approach it. they see it for what it is. Now, let's look at anybody that would be attracted to a narcissist. I'm going to use a person that is codependent in this case, because codependents, they get something from the narcissist that they didn't get growing up. And the very foundation of that starts off with something that a lot of people look past, or they just kind of like buy into it because they're like, oh, finally I'm being loved by this person. I've never had this level of love and affection and everything. Love bombing. It's like a stun grenade, you know. it's like designed to like keep you in this state of like, I don't know, attraction. Something, let me make this very clear. Something that narcissists fear a lot is rejection and abandonment. So they'll do everything in their power to make sure that that doesn't happen. But anyway, let's get back to it. So in narcissistic relationships, you'll find two people that severely lacked in childhood very necessary, healthy ego state development. A narcissist, as I already explored with the lack of healthy ego state development, pretty much like nothing there. Like if you were to consider like this whole thing right here in ego state, their development is like right here. They got like nothing at all. Other than that, they were poured into with shame by the people that raised them. Somebody like a codependent who also severely lacked healthy ego state development is going to be attracted to a narcissist. One, because narcissists physically are oftentimes very attractive, but energetically are oftentimes very charismatic. People like codependents are very attracted to that. It's very seductive to them. But the fascinating thing is that this relationship between a narcissist and a codependent, why does this work so, not that it actually works well, but why does it become such an interesting bond? Well, this is literally like a perfect puzzle piece fitting trauma bond. The reality of it is that what does the narcissist crave? Attention, admiration, adoration. They want to be placed on a pedestal. They want to, they want to be seen paralleled to the defense mechanismed fantasy that they created for themselves in their painful childhood. What does the codependent do? What was the codependent literally created to do? Please. Please, people please, appease, do things for validation and approval. And so it's a back and forth game of, the narcissist essentially love bombing the codependent, and the codependent, adoring and admiring and placing the narcissist on a fucking pedestal, all the while being totally unaware of what's happening. If you were aware of what was happening, you wouldn't even partake in it to begin with. So essentially understanding that both individuals severely lacked healthy ego state development. I would argue that the narcissist is more on the severe side of lacking healthy ego state development. But the codependent also, simultaneously, they learned that their role in life was to people please. They didn't learn, neither the narcissist or the codependent learned healthy boundaries. They didn't learn individuation or differentiation. If they had, they would not have entered that relationship. They are basically like enmeshed and like really just fucking in. There's no differentiation. There's no separation of identity. The narcissist is the codependent, and the codependent is the narcissist, and there's no separation of that. That remains homeostatic, and in and of itself, both individuals, even though they don't even really see themselves as individuals, they were basically molded for these roles. So it's like a match made in trauma bonding heaven. That's the reality of it. But let me again look back at what it actually means to be a narcissistic extension of somebody, or of a narcissist. So essentially what happens is that when you are an extension of somebody that is a narcissist, you're essentially there to contain them. They don't really exist a whole lot outside of somebody being a narcissistic extension of them. And that is very terrifying because they severely lack a healthy sense of ego state development. Again, it's like fucking crumbs down here. It's not this beautiful shape that takes place in a healthy childhood with healthy boundaries, individuation, and differentiation. No, none of that stuff is fucking present. None of it. So they rely on their narcissistic extensions to give them a sense of self, a sense of identity. This is why they need the admiration, the adoration, the attention, everything. This is why it's very challenging for narcissists to stay out of relationships, because they literally they literally require them in order to psychologically exist. That's how it works. Now, because this is focusing on, it's not that I don't care about the narcissists. I highly doubt that they're going to even want to entertain any of this. But anyway, the focus is on the person who's trying to get out of the narcissistic relationship. It doesn't matter if you're codependent. It doesn't matter what it is. You, unfortunately, lacked a healthy childhood. You were raised in survival, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all of that stuff. All of the gaslighting that the narcissist does, all of the invalidation, which is basically gaslighting, all of the isolating. Yes, narcissists literally isolate you from people in your life because they don't want you to. They don't want you to leave them. They don't want you to reject them. They don't want you to believe that anybody else will be there for you. It's literally like the reason why it's so hard to leave narcissistic relationships is because both childhoods etched people perfectly to be immensely fucking attracted to each other. It's just severely unhealthy. Like imagine you each were sculpted pretty much perfectly as matches for each other. And it fits together seemingly so well. Well, it only does because your childhoods were severely fucked up. If you learned to be codependent and people please, you literally learned that your role in life, like as a person, you almost don't even see yourself as a person because you never got healthy boundaries, individuation, and differentiation. Essentially, you see yourself as somebody that just pleases people. You're just supposed to please people. And what do narcissists love? To be pleased. They love to be admired and adored and have all of this attention showered on them. They love to be placed on a fucking pedestal because they weren't. And I mean, it's not that they weren't placed on a pedestal. They had such a severely fucked up childhood that they basically entered into a fantasy world at a very early age, where life wasn't painful, but that was a fantasy. It wasn't real. It was just a defense mechanism. Life was instead actually very painful for them. And essentially it became a regular life of like psychosis. That's what it was. Psychosis being, being out of touch with reality. That's what that is. It becomes so challenging to leave narcissistic relationships because you seemingly fit so well with the other person, even though you don't realize that it's based in unhealthy dynamics rather than actual healthy dynamics. You're so used to you are so used to being treated like shit that it just feels like comfortable, familiar home to you. The narcissistic relationship feels like the comfortable and familiar home. And let me just make it very clear that there are a lot of dynamics within the relationship that make it very difficult to leave. Maybe you have kids with the person. Yeah, I understand that's very difficult to leave. Even if it's like a business partner, you own real estate, you own property, you own something with the person. Emotions in and of themselves make it very challenging to leave a narcissistic relationship. You might have this belief in mind, oh, this person is absolutely perfect for me. But what you don't understand is that you feel that way only because your childhood molded you to be attracted to dynamics like this. Whoever raised you as an extension of them, which is why you were attracted to being an extension of somebody else, rather than being seen and cared for as a separate individual away from the narcissist. The narcissist is not capable of that. Narcissists take advantage of and use people because they lack the capacity to develop and form healthy relationships. They literally cannot. They're not capable of it. And it takes a lot of work for a narcissist to heal. But are they even interested in the potential path of doing that? No, they're not. Because, again, narcissists, they care about themselves. And by the way, that's not me saying that, like I'm a narcissist. That's just me utilizing visuals to show people that it's like, yep, spotlight's on me, and if it's not on me, where the fuck is it, and why the fuck is it not on me? I don't care whose fucking life I ruin. I'm ruining my own fucking life too, by the way, by doing all these fucking unhealthy things. But I just keep doing it. But why do I keep doing it? Because emotional pain. Because when I look at myself and I see nothing but shame, I avoid further looking at myself, and instead I fill that up with relationships that are unhealthy because I'm incapable of healthy relationships. This is really basically just the dialogue of the narcissist. That's really how it works. There are a few other things that I want to say, but before I end off this video, what I do absolutely want to say is you can get out of a narcissistic relationship. It is very challenging. Here is what I believe it requires. You need to see yourself clearly. You don't see yourself clearly when you're in a relationship with a narcissist. You don't understand what's going on. You need to understand, which if you haven't been through any form of therapy yet, like deep fucking therapy, you need to understand that you were molded for the relationship by somebody else, probably a parent or guardian, a caretaker in childhood. You need to see yourself clearly. Because if you don't, let me make this very clear. The ticket out of a narcissistic relationship is awareness. Awareness of yourself, awareness of the other person, the narcissist, and an awareness of the situation in and of itself. Awareness. When you are unaware of anything in life, you don't really have the information necessary to be like, I need to leave. You don't. You lack the necessary understanding of what's actually happening there. Codependents that lack necessary insight in regards to who they are, how they are, why they are, the way that they function, they're going to stay in unhealthy relationships, especially relationships with narcissists, because they just don't see it for what it is. I have gotten comments from people that are like, yeah, I've spent decades of my life with a narcissist, and maybe I just got out, or I'm still there. Oh, let me say this real quick. A lot of people might say, well, why do narcissists push you away if they're scared of like abandonment and rejection? Because they're trying to test your loyalty. It kind of like contributes to their sense of self. And two, they also just don't want to deal with the pain of you potentially leaving. That's the reality of that. And so they try to push you away sooner while simultaneously taking advantage of you, because they understand that relationships to them are very painful, especially when people leave, because it's not just the person that leaves, it's the narcissist's sense of self that leaves. Like, think about that. The person that the narcissist chooses to be with as a narcissistic extension of them is essentially the person that is containing their form. They're like hardly existent without the person there. But there's something that I want to cover here before I end off, and probably a few other things that I will say. But anyway, Awareness of yourself, the narcissist in the situation. Awareness is key. What you don't know will essentially not help you. I mean, that's just the way that it works. If you don't know that the relationship that you're in is unhealthy, you're gonna have a very hard time leaving. A very, very hard time leaving. Like if you're being gaslighted into believing. Oh, and by the way, let me just say this real quick because I saw this said the other day as well. Um, you have a choice. You absolutely have a choice. You 100% have a choice. It's just very challenging to make that choice. It is very challenging to make that choice. Do you actually have control, though? The narcissist loves power and control. They would like to believe that they're far more in control. That's the reality of that. Um, you have a choice. You can stay with a narcissist if you want to. It's entirely up to you. Your life's going to continue to fucking suck because it's just not going to change with the narcissist. You could also leave. Now, what happens if you leave is that there's a lot of pushback. And there's something that many people are actually very unaware of because maybe they've never really had like serious experience with a narcissistic relationship. This might be their first experience with a narcissistic relationship. There's this thing down the line in narcissistic relationships called hoovering. From what I heard, this was based on the Hoover vacuum, and it's basically what it means. They come back around after a while to try to suck you back into the dynamic. A lot of people get sucked back in. The best thing that you can do for yourself is to go no contact, and including no contact with anybody else that knows them. It's very challenging to get out of. I understand why there was so much pushback on my first video of hey, it's not that easy. It's not. No, it's not that easy. It's not. You when you get out of a relationship with a narcissist, you essentially feel like you're dying. Like you feel like if not you yourself, like a huge part of you is dying. It's very challenging. It's very challenging to deal with. And that's why it's important to understand all of these different things that take place. So let me just do a recap real quick. And I could even make a part 3 to all this just to really communicate everything. And let me make it very clear as well. I fucking care about people. I really do. I really do. A lot of people get stuck in narcissistic relationships for decades. Understandably why. It's very hard to get out of narcissistic relationships, especially with everything that feels so fucking comfortable and familiar to your traumatic childhood. It is possible to get out of narcissistic relationships, but you got to be serious. I mean, it's not, you got to be serious about it. It's very challenging to realize that what you want to have changed in the narcissistic relationship is probably fucking not going to. You might have all these feelings involved. You might have all these different things that you feel like you want and everything. And you might have people on both sides, like your family and their family, being like, "Oh, just be patient with the person. They seem so charismatic," all the while simultaneously not realizing the fucking Jekyll Hyde dynamic that they don't see that you see. I really care about people. And I care about people not wasting their fucking lives away in relationships that don't actually going anywhere because they believe that it will. Again, both individuals in a narcissistic relationship severely lack a healthy development of ego state. And narcissists only utilize people as narcissistic extensions of themselves because they are developmentally incapable of actual healthy reciprocated back and forth relationships. That's the reality of it. Unless and until they do any work on themselves, none of that is going to change, and it requires a lot of fucking work, a lot of fucking therapy. The sad thing is, for the person, like the codependent who's in the relationship with the narcissist, it feels so fucking comfortable and familiar to childhood that they don't even think twice about it until they become aware of all of the dynamics. I would say that most people don't leave because comfort and familiar dynamics just are really seductive to them, and that's the reality of it. But really, the awareness of yourself, the narcissist, and the situation clearly is the ticket out. And again, I will end off on a note of empathy and compassion here. Um, Narcissistic relationships are fucking awful. And I understand that people get stuck in them. I understand that people spend decades of their fucking lives in them. And I understand that it's very difficult to get out. I understand that. I have nothing but empathy and compassion for people. But what I also understand is that insight in regards to looking at people that have been like, I've been in this relationship with this narcissist for decades, for 40, 50 years. And all due respect, it's like, fuck, fuck. And then it's sad to wake up when you're 70 or 80 or 90 just sitting with all the regret of not having gotten out. It's sad. It's fucking sad. It really is. My heart goes out to those that are in these relationships. They really are. And let me just hold on a second. I swear this will be the last thing that I say. I might make another video based on this, but I just want to say something real quick. If you're starting to realize that the relationship that you're in is narcissistic, and you're starting to realize that there's something about it that is off, there are multiple things about it that are off. There are multiple things about it that are fucked up. You were actually gaslighted in childhood. You were invalidated. You were led to believe that you should not trust yourself, that you should not trust your intuition. You can trust yourself. What you're experiencing is real. The gaslighting is real. Being led to believe that you did something that you didn't do, or that you said something that you didn't, all these different things. Yes, you can trust yourself. You can absolutely trust yourself. But one of the reasons that you're with the narcissist is because you've been taught to not trust yourself. You've been gaslighted and invalidated in childhood. You've been taught to not trust your intuition. You can absolutely trust yourself. What you're experiencing is real. The Jekyll Hyde is real. The hot cold is real. The everything that you're experiencing is real. You're real. Everything about it is real. You can trust yourself. You have a choice here. You absolutely have a choice. You do not have to stay with the narcissist. If you so choose to, it's entirely your choice. In regards to control, you do not have, if any, a whole lot of control over them. You don't. And you're probably not going to be able to positively impact their life with a whole lot of healthy change. It's entirely up to you. It is, at the end of the day. It's up to you. But the question that I would ask myself if I were you, because I don't see it rolling out any other way than this, is that if you were to stay with the narcissist for decades of your life, do you think that you would wake up decades down the line at 70, 80, 90 and really just sit there and be like, fuck. See yourself, the narcissist, and the situation for what it is. Awareness is key. You can trust yourself, and you have a choice.